Good morning, team. It's Miss E here. Today's Tuesday, April 14th, and I am super excited to be with you today. I hope that you guys had a really great long weekend. One of the favorite parts of my weekend was we had a picnic in the backyard since we weren't able to go anywhere. Um, and then we just played some soccer in the backyard. So that was really fun. I hope that you got to spend some good quality time with your family this weekend celebrating Easter. So we're going to jump into it today. We are still in Unit 8, and today we're actually going to do a ecosystem project. Today is day 1 of that. I know it's been a long weekend, team, but don't forget to complete your Hello Morning survey. You don't want to get out of the habit of doing that first thing. So if you haven't done that yet, please pause the video and go complete your Hello Morning survey. Let's jump into our science and COVID-19 facts of the day. So today I wanted to talk about something that was positive. Okay, science is really important during times like this, especially with the medical field. So if you click on this article right here, it's going to take you I'm sorry, if you click on the link, it will take you to an article that talks about some of the latest scientific developments related to COVID 19. But what we're going to talk about today is the fact that coronavirus survivors' plasma could save lives. What is plasma? So, what plasma is it is a component of your blood. It actually is about 55% of your blood. By itself, it's a yellowish liquid fluid and it's mostly water, but it also contains proteins, glucose, which is sugar, minerals, hormones, and carbon dioxide. Okay, the blood cells, if you look at this picture, you can see that they're actually suspended in the plasma. So the plasma is this yellowish stuff. Then you have platelets, red blood cells, white blood cells. Okay, what does plasma do? Plasma actually moves nutrients, hormones, and proteins to parts of the body. So it's kind of like a transport system. Cells also deposit their waste products into the plasma, and the plasma helps remove the waste from the body. So, what does that have to do with COVID 19? Well, what happens is that when a person has a virus and their immune system fights it off, he or she develops something called an antibody. Okay, antibodies are like soldiers, but they're only trained to fight a specific disease. That's why sometimes when you get a virus, depending on what it is, you may not ever get it again because your body has developed antibodies. Okay, so what they think is that by giving sick patients plasma from survivors, those antibodies may be reproduced by their own body and help them fight the virus. So this is a method that has been used in the past, but scientists aren't sure if it's going to work for COVID 19 yet. Okay, it appears to have been effective in 2 studies in China, but the trials have just begun in the United States, in New York, and Houston. So I wanted to show you this quick illustration right here. In the novel coronavirus, these spikes on the outside help the virus spread, and that's what they use to bind to cells and infect them. So the antibody basically just blocks the ability for that virus to attach to the cell wall. Okay, so that's what the antibody does. Now, this is really exciting if it is effective. Okay, and scientists are also working on developing a vaccine. So right now, there are 445,000 coronavirus survivors in the world. So if this is an effective therapy, it's going to be really, really important. So now I want you to add a comment to this assignment post in Google Classroom. It's your turn, okay? I want to know if there were a human challenge trial to test how effective a new vaccine is. So what that means is that they would take healthy people, they would give them a small dose of actually the virus, okay? And then they would test the new vaccine on that person. So the question is, would you, if you were able to make that choice, participate in a human challenge trial in order to see how effective a new vaccine is. Okay, so right now I want you to pause this video. I want you to go to Google Classroom and I'm going to give you 30 seconds to answer this question. Would you participate in a human challenge trial? Okay, team, so today we are working on our ecosystem partner project, and today is day one. So I'm super excited because today you're going to be able to combine the information that you've learned so far. So, our objective for today, we're actually going to research the ecosystem of a national park and create a presentation to display abiotic, which are non living factors that define it, a limiting factor in the ecosystem, a food chain containing producer, primary consumer, secondary consumer, tertiary consumer, and decomposer. So first, let's just quickly review abiotic factors. These are non-living factors that are really important in the ecosystem. So for example, wind, sunlight, soil, temperature, atmosphere, water. So which non-living factors define your ecosystem? So in a second, I'm going to show you an outline. You're going to get to choose a national park, and you want to think about which non-living factors define the ecosystem. So for example, in a desert, water, sunlight, and temperature really set that ecosystem apart. Next, a limiting factor. This is something that keeps populations of different species down. So the limiting factor lowers the carrying capacity of an ecosystem, or how many of that organism that they can handle, okay? Abiotic factors include temperature, water, climate or weather, and soil, okay, if there's not enough mineral in the soil. And limiting factors are competition, predation, which is basically predators, okay, parasitism, which is basically like parasites, and disease. Okay, so these are all different things that can limit the population of an ecosystem. Finally, you're going to put together a food chain. So this is a desert food chain. You have grass, which is the producer. You have a rat, which is the primary consumer. You have a snake, which is a secondary consumer. And you have an eagle, which is a tertiary consumer. The only thing that we're missing on this food chain that I'm asking you for in your project is a decomposer. I do not have a decomposer on this food chain. But I want you to realize that the arrow is going to flow in the direction of the energy flow. So the flow is going to go from the grass to the rat, from the rat to the snake, from the snake to the eagle. So now let's check out your project outline and template. So you have this project outline as a document attached to your post for today. So I want to go through these different areas of the project with you now. So you and your partner are going to create and share a presentation about the ecosystem of a famous national park. You will research one of the following parks, either Great Smoky Mountains, the Everglades, or Mammoth Cave. So I have links here to all of these parks so that you and your partner can choose one, okay? Then you're gonna add each of the sections below to your presentation. You're gonna have 3 class periods to complete the presentation with your partner. And then on Friday, you're actually gonna record a presentation that's gonna be shared with a group of 8th grade scholars for peer review. So the very first thing that you're gonna need is a title. This should be the name of the national park's ecosystem. So for example, I'm going to show you in a second an example of Channel Islands National Park ecosystem. So that is going to be my title, okay? Your research notes are going to go here. So as you're going through and completing your research, you can type in this section. So let's say if you choose Great Smoky Mountain National Park, you can type that in here so that you can transfer it over to your slides. Okay. The next thing you're going to include in your work today is a description of the ecosystem. So I want you to describe the ecosystem and what makes it unique. You're going to include the abiotic factors that define it, and you're going to explain a limiting factor, which is something that limits populations. and how they have adapted to it, okay? Next, you're going to put a food chain. So you're going to demonstrate a food chain within that park's ecosystem that includes every trophic level. So producer, which is the plant, primary consumer, which is what eats the plant, secondary consumer, eats the primary consumer, tertiary consumer, and then you need a decomposer, okay? If there is a top predator in the food chain, you want to be sure to name and label it. The organism's proper name should be used. So, for example, instead of putting snake, you might write Western diamondback rattlesnake. So, these are the 3 sections that you and your partner need to complete today. Let's go take a look at the project template. So this I shared with you. This is where you're going to build your presentation. So the first slide, you're going to put your title and enter your partner names. The second slide, you're going to do that ecosystem description. And the third slide is where you're going to work on that food chain, okay? Don't worry about these other slides for today. Just leave those blank because that's what we're going to work on tomorrow. Now we're going to go through an example. So for the example, I'm actually going to do Channel Islands National Park. Example that I wanted to show you that I used or that I created using the outline which I have here and the template that I gave you. So on the bottom of your outline you have some links here. There are the 3 parks that you can choose from. There are websites and there are videos. You can also use Google to help you find particular pieces of information. So in this example column, I've filled this out just as if I was a scholar looking for the same information. So you'll follow these same steps, but you'll put your information here. So what I did first is I looked up the title. So the link that I use is actually the same um, main site that you have for your resources. It looks like this. However, mine is the Channel Islands. When you click on Learn About the Park, you can go down to Nature, Nature Features and Ecosystems, and then this will take you to a screen that talks about the ecosystem and some of the features of it. Then you can click further on from that. So I actually went ahead and read this information and looked up some information so that I could um, answer the information on my second slide. So what I learned is that the Channel Islands has a coastal Mediterranean ecosystem. It has a very unique climate with mild wet winters and warm and dry summers. Okay. What I also learned is that this leads to a high amount of biodiversity. So there are lots of different plants and animals, one of the most in the world actually in one ecosystem. I also learned that there are a combination of nutrients and sunlight leads to highly productive photosynthesis in plants, which impacts the entire system. So what I did here is on my title slide, I just put the name here, and then I put my name, and then I changed the background to be a picture of the Channel Islands. On my next slide, I actually just copied and pasted these paragraphs here that I put when I did my research into this paragraph of defining factors. I also learned that predation is a limiting factor in this ecosystem, and many smaller organisms and fish hide in the sea kelp for protection. So I added a picture of that there, and I copied and pasted my paragraph, or I changed this into a paragraph for the slide. The third slide asks you to create a food chain. Okay, so within the um, resources that I provided, you can actually click on animals in these different sections, and you'll be able to actually see, sorry, nature, animals. You can actually click on different animals that exist in these parks. So I actually used this to create my food chain here. Now, what I found is that giant kelp is a producer. Okay, sea urchins actually eat the giant kelp. There's something called a California spiny lobster, which eats the sea urchins. And then there's something called a giant black sea bass, which is humongous. In this picture, it's actually next to a human. Okay. Um, that consumes the California spiny lobster. And then a decomposer is a clamworm. So I just put all of those things here and then I copied and pasted pictures from the website. Now, one thing that I want to point out is that the arrows are going to move in the direction of the energy flow. So because the kelp is eaten by the sea urchin, the arrow will go from the kelp to the sea urchin. Here I have the decomposer and I have all of the arrows pointing to it because it actually goes around on the seafloor and would consume any of these things that were dead laying on the floor. So that team is how you are going to do your first 3 slides. When I say go with your partner, you're going to choose a national park, the Great Smoky Mountains, the Everglades, or the Mammoth Cave. You're going to open your ecosystem partner project template. One person will share with your partner and me. You're going to complete the title, ecosystem description, and food chain slides with descriptions and images. Don't turn it in, please, because we're going to pick up tomorrow. If you have any questions, of course, you can always reach out via email or this is my cell phone here. I look forward to seeing what you come up with today, team, as you begin your partner project. Go.